Now, if someone could screw around in the dev tools and change their state to contain somebody else's UID, they could theoretically get someone else's notes. Because we're not actually on the Firebase side enforcing that they are logged in as the user with that UID. But we could. Remember this red warning here? Your security rules are defined as public. Anyone can read or write to your database. So let's actually fix that. See, the second tab under database is rules. Read, true, write, true. So no matter what, everyone can read, everyone can write. But we can change this. And if you hit learn more, you can see the documentation, which explains this fairly well. You can see it's a JSON-like structure. So basically, if there's something here that returns a Boolean type thing, you can establish rules there, but you need to know kind of their syntax for that thing, because this isn't JavaScript. So let's try to make some changes here. All right. And notice the simulator here will let you test your rules too, which is kind of interesting. So let's change this to auth not equal null. How's that? What do you think that means? Yes. What do you suppose that means? Auth not equal null. Someone can guess what that means. Yeah, you have to be authenticated as somebody. So that would stop the general public. But of course, you just have to have a Google account or a GitHub account. But still, it's better than nothing. So let's use a simulator here. Simulation type read. Location. Doesn't matter. How about /notes? Run. Simulation read denied. Authenticated true. Doesn't matter who we're logged in as. Just matters that we are logged in. Run. Simulated read allowed. Cool. So now we could publish those rules if we wanted to. Now you have to at least be signed in. But we can do better. We can also specify per endpoint, and we can check that they are, say, the user whose UID happens to match the name of that endpoint. Let's try something like that. So read. Let's add a layer under rules. And let's say an endpoint called $user ID. So that means a variable, basically. So $user ID. To read an endpoint containing whatever that is, we need to be that user dot read auth not equal null and auth.uid, which is how you refer to the UID of the logged in user, is equal to the name of the endpoint. We could do the same thing for write. Auth not equal null and auth UID equal $UID. Let's try the simulator. Notice it says unpublished changes. So let's try reading /notes. Logged in as doesn't matter. Here's my UID. Denied. What do you think if I wanted to read /notes now? How could I change this simulator? If that's my only rule, I would have to have a UID of notes. Then I could read it. So basically, this rule is saying to read any endpoint, your UID must match that endpoint. So to read /dstruce, if I had some other UID, could not do it. If I had the UID dstruce, I could. So that seems like what we want. Let's publish that. See if it works. Let's refresh. Yep, I can still read my Google version. Sign out, sign in as GitHub version. And I can still read that. Now, if I had any other kind of data, any other endpoints that maybe everyone needed to read, this would fall down pretty quickly. Like, no one can read this now. So we could, say, scope all of these user things under an endpoint called notes. So we could do something like notes.uid or something like that. And then if we did that, instead of having to have the UID of the name of the endpoint, I can make it a little less broad and say that just inside notes will you find that. So inside notes, so notes dot some user ID, you have to have that user ID. So notes /dstruce, you have to be dstruce. That works. Notes dstruce if I were somebody else, like dpalaz, would not work. But this way I could put other endpoints that everyone is allowed to read. Like I could say, I don't know what. If I wanted to save my privacy policy in the database for some goofy reason, I could do something like that. So notes are scoped like that, but I could say legal notices, read, true, everyone can read them, .write, auth not equal null, and auth.uid equal something. I don't know. Admin. I don't know. We'll just say you have to be logged in to change the legal notices. Sounds kind of dangerous, but oh well. So let's try this. To read /notes/dstruce, I have to be me. Dana still can't do it, but I can. To read /legal notices /anything. If I'm not authenticated, works just fine. Can I write? Well, unauthenticated, I cannot. Authenticated, I can both read and write. So we could do something like that. Whoops, I didn't mean to hit the back button. I didn't publish those because I accidentally hit the back button. So that stinks. So what I had here was notes. And then this stuff was intended. make sure that worked. That works. That does not. Okay, cool. And screwed this up. Yep. So notes slash that thing doesn't exist yet. So it's going to try to sync with something that isn't there yet. But it generally creates the endpoint. So why isn't this working? Well, if you try to just go to this props UID, it just creates that endpoint if it doesn't exist yet, right? This time it's not doing that, despite the fact that there's already a .notes. What's the problem? Get rid of a couple of these. So if I put notes, value, just an empty object, add. Yeah, I can't do that. Fine. So it doesn't like that. But it doesn't mind this. So just, come on, do the thing. Oh, well, I can't read it. I can't access it. My rules. My rules are now a little too restrictive. Maybe notes. I need to have, whoops, read true, write true, I'm not sure here. Expected this to be fine. See what that does. Where are we here? Notes dot. Invalid. Pass must be non-strings. What? Slash. You're right. No dot. It's a slash. That is the problem. They are the endpoints are slashes. That is the problem. Thank you. There we go. Now notes, and then my UID, and then my notes. Yep, it's a slash. My bad. Now I have two of them, all scoped to my user ID. I will get rid of that super permissive rule that I stuck in there. Make sure it still works after I do that. Refresh. Still fine. All right. So change endpoint where notes are synced is all I did on the React side.